Sleep is not merely a shutdown. It's a transition into a different state of being. The assertion that we completely lose consciousness during sleep is inaccurate. Every night, the body slows its activity, eyes close, and the familiar world fades from view, yet consciousness persists, transforming and traversing. It embarks on a nocturnal journey through unseen realms. This journey is constant, and the only reason it often goes unremembered lies in childhood conditioning, which instills the belief that dreams are meaningless and solely for physical rest. We are told that all experiences, images, and sounds of the dream world are mere figments of imagination, random disturbances created by a tired brain. But what if this is a misconception? What if dreams are not just illusions, but fragments of something deeper, a hidden world brimming with meaning, memory, and motion? The ancient Egyptian god of wisdom, Thoth, saw sleep not as mere silence, but as a passage, a portal to other dimensions where the soul remembers its power. And every night, consciously or not, each person enters this portal. From early childhood, alongside learning to speak, count, and draw, a distrust of dreams is instilled. We are taught that dreams are merely games of the mind, and the voices, places, and visions that arise within them hold no significance. The phrase, "it was just a dream," becomes a universal response to any recounting of strange, beautiful, or frightening nocturnal experiences. This response encourages us to ignore, forget, and suppress our dreams. This is no accident. It is the first lesson in self-forgetfulness. By nature, humans are born open. Their first dreams are vivid, wild, and rich with symbolism. They travel without knowing boundaries, gliding through layers of thought, time, and feeling. However, this ability is not preserved. A gentle redirection occurs, shifting focus from the inner world to an external narrative. Priority is given to wakefulness, productivity, the physical world, and so-called real life. Yet, in ancient cultures, dreams were not seen as a deviation from reality, but as its very roots. In ancient Egypt, dreams were considered messages from the gods. In Tibet, dream yoga was practiced to prepare the soul for death. And in Hermetic traditions, sleep was seen as a sacred way to access truths inaccessible to waking logic. Thoth, god of writing and language, was also a master of astral law, guardian of hidden dimensions. He understood what modern culture has lost. Sleep is a space where consciousness remembers its freedom. Instead of learning to listen to their dreams, people are taught to discard them. Schools don't ask students to recall dreams. They demand memorization of equations. Media doesn't praise dreamers. It glorifies workaholics. And when people dream of something greater, more mystical and profound, it is quietly labeled a pathology. Dreams become childish, spirituality irrational, and intuition dangerous. Thus, a most valuable skill, the ability to perceive other layers of reality, is gradually lost. Our dream muscles atrophy, and inner vision becomes clouded. The programming goes even deeper. We are taught that success is based on results, goals, grades, and measurable achievements. In this system, sleep becomes a weakness, rest becomes laziness, and stillness becomes stagnation. But true sleep is not stillness, it is movement. Quiet, hidden, subtle, yet more powerful than anything accomplished during the day. While the body lies still, the mind travels through landscapes of memory, emotion, archetypes, and energy. This detachment from dream life should not have happened. The system stole not only our time but also our night. However, this can be reclaimed for the feeling that something more profound is happening during sleep than is commonly believed is not a mistake, but an instinct that has always been present. It has been buried under schedules, screens, and lessons urging us to wake early, work harder, and sleep only when necessary. Sleep is not passivity. It is a state of perception. And the only reason we don't see what lies behind the veil is that no one taught us. No one taught us that pre-sleep thoughts program the journey, that our emotional state determines our vibration, that consciousness doesn't wait for activation, but is always moving, listening, and reaching. This world has taught us to fear the unknown, but dreams are precisely the unknown meant for exploration. They don't distract from life. They are messages from the deep self, from worlds existing outside of time, from echoes of who we were before we were told who to be. Every night is a door, and when sleep is perceived not as rest, but as an initiation, everything changes. The question, "What did I dream?" is replaced by "Where did I go?" This question is the first crack in the wall built around our inner world. This question is the beginning of awakening. Every night, as the body sinks into the embrace of sleep, a captivating mystery unfolds. Breathing slows, muscles relax, and the mind enters the rapid eye movement, M phase. However, science cannot fully explain how consciousness slips through the boundaries of physical perception and embarks on a journey. The direction of this journey is determined by vibration, a factor hidden from the public. Common belief presents dreams as chaotic brain impulses, useless echoes of the day lived. But ancient teachings, particularly those of Thoth, reveal a different perspective. Dreams are not just meaningless noise, but rather recordings and snapshots of places visited by consciousness during the disconnection of physical senses. When one begins to recall not only the content of dreams, but also the feelings behind them, an astonishing truth emerges. Some dreams are memories. Many visions are real experiences occurring on the astral plane, a dimension superimposed on ours, vibrating at a different frequency. This is not imagination, but a phenomenon observed, recorded, and even scientifically investigated. Consider the work of the Monroe Institute, where participants repeatedly reported out-of-body experiences, consciously leaving their physical bodies. Or Dr. Charles Tart's research on altered states of consciousness, where dreamers described encounters and environments that were too structured, detailed, and realistic to be fabrication. Nevertheless, the world continues to ridicule the very idea of astral travel. Why? Because acknowledging the ability of consciousness to move beyond the body and realizing the lack of attachment to the physical form makes an individual uncontrollable. Old rules lose their power, fear vanishes, and an understanding emerges that death is not the end, time is not linear, and communication does not require words. In the astral, one can meet other entities, spirits, ancestors, and even living beings without uttering a word. One can explore cities built of sounds, symbols, or geometric shapes, and communicate with teachers who transmit knowledge not through words, but through waves of meaning that penetrate one's very being like truth. However, all of this becomes impossible if we continue to consider dreams as illusions. Dreams are messages, and sometimes warnings. Many people have experienced precognitive dreams, predicting events long before they occur. This is not coincidence, but consciousness connecting to a non-linear time field where past, present, and future exist simultaneously, allowing the soul to move between them. Some dreams are symbolic, clothed in metaphors to address the deeper mind, which understands the language of the soul. Other dreams are more direct, transporting us to places that seem more real than waking life, with vibrant colors, rich sounds, and intense emotions. This signifies crossing a threshold, entering the astral world. The astral world is multi-layered. Higher dimensions are filled with clarity, light, and wisdom, while lower ones are dense and chaotic, shaped by fear and unresolved pain. One's destination in the astral is determined by one's internal state. Falling asleep in a state of stress, anger, or rage can lead to places reflecting that negative energy. But falling asleep with intention, clarity, and curiosity opens new doors. Thoth taught that the astral is a school, a mirror, and a testing ground, whose lessons we attend whether we realize it or not. The question is, are we ready to awaken to the truth of our journeys? Next time you're tempted to say, "I had a strange dream," pause and consider. Perhaps it wasn't meaningless, but a memory of where you've been. The nocturnal journeys of consciousness are not a game of chance, but a direct reflection of a person's inner world. Emotions, fears, and desires become a kind of compass, guiding the soul's journey on the astral plane. This plane, like a spiritual mirror, does not judge, but merely reflects the inner landscape of the unconscious self. For years, people have moved through these invisible worlds, intuitively mapping dimensions that resonate with their innermost states. One might find oneself in luminous crystalline spaces, inhabited by glowing beings and filled with profound revelations. Or one might wander into gray, misty cities or places permeated with emotional heaviness, confusion, and stagnation. These are not random dreams, but destinations attracted by the frequency of one's inner state. The astral world responds to vibrations, welcoming individuals into the rooms they themselves have built with their thoughts and emotional patterns. Fear leads to the realm of fear. Anxiety chains one to slow and murky zones. But peace, love, and gratitude open gates to dimensions vibrating with clarity and healing. Ancient teachings, from Thoth to Tibetan mystics, emphasize the importance of purifying the mind and spirit before sleep for a reason. This was not merely a religious ritual, but a necessity for navigating the astral world. The place where consciousness travels determines what knowledge will be gained, whom one will meet, and what will be brought back into the waking world. In ancient Egyptian temples, initiates underwent special preparation before sleep. Chants, oils, and mental practices were not superstitions, but tools for attuning consciousness to astral travel, serving higher purposes. The Temple of Sleep was not a myth, but a real practice. Thoth's teachings, inscribed on the emerald tablets, indicate that mastery of conscious dreaming leads to mastery in worlds beyond the physical, fostering the evolution of consciousness. Awareness of this process transforms a simple bedtime routine into a sacred ritual. The last thoughts before falling asleep become the ignition key, determining the setting for the upcoming journey. It's no coincidence that spiritual teachers speak of intention as a superpower. Intention doesn't just guide dreams, it acts as a coordinate system, defining the destination. One can ask for healing, insight, encounters with spiritual guides, or entry into specific planes of learning. When the request is clear and the vibration matches, the experience is not long in coming. Many report waking with information they couldn't have known, knowledge of languages they don't speak, or answers to questions they hadn't even consciously formulated. This is the memory of the astral world, bleeding through the veil, fragile and easily lost in the morning mist, yet entirely real. The more attention paid to this phenomenon, the stronger the connecting thread becomes. However, just as there are beautiful worlds, there are also darker, denser ones, woven from unresolved energy, trauma, and fears. Nightmares, which seem too real and leave an impression for hours or days, indicate visits to such zones. This is not punishment, but an opportunity for awareness, a call for resolution, release, and transmutation. Thoth warned of these worlds not to frighten, but to prepare. The astral is not merely a playground, but an entire reality, with its layers, laws, and inhabitants. Just as one can meet a kindred spirit, there is a possibility of encountering lost energies, restless souls, or fragments of one's own self. One may encounter symbolic projections of inner wounds, hiding under the guise of something external. This is why interpretations of dreams, however beautiful or terrifying, should be approached with caution. They do not always reflect literal reality, but they are always a reflection of our inner world. Here, the ability to distinguish truth from falsehood becomes extremely important. The more rooted we are in real life, the clearer our dreams become. The more purposeful we are before sleep, the stronger we become in the astral world. And when emotional energy is stable, when we are rooted in love rather than fear, we begin to attract higher encounters and experience deeper clarity. Sleep ceases to be merely a way to escape reality, transforming into a means of communication with others, with guides, with the deep self, and with those aspects of reality that manifest only when the veil between worlds thins. In the prelude to the realm of Morpheus, in the fleeting moment between wakefulness and slumber, lies an immense potential, often overlooked by most. This elusive liminal boundary is not merely the fading of consciousness, but an open door, a portal, a friendly interface for programming the depths of the subconscious. Neglecting this window of opportunity risks allowing something else to seize control. The subconscious, like fertile ground, lacks critical thinking and is ready to receive and store any information. This is where beliefs take root, habits are formed, fears arise, and perspectives open. The moments preceding sleep are when this ground is most receptive. It is no coincidence that esoteric traditions attach such importance to pre-sleep rituals, invocations, and purposeful intention setting. During this period of loosened conscious control, the inner world becomes pliable for programming. Words spoken to oneself before sleep gain greater power than daytime. Reflections. In this quiet, barely perceptible moment, seeds are sown that determine dreams, the future, and the deep aspects of the psyche. Consider what most people do in this precious moment. They endlessly scroll through news feeds, indulge in anxieties, replay regrets, or dread the coming day. It is this negative flow that the subconscious absorbs, forming the lens through which astral experiences are perceived. Falling asleep permeated with vibrations of fear, need, or distraction inevitably leads to chaotic dreams and a feeling of exhaustion upon waking. But what would happen if one purposefully shaped this moment, addressing their inner mind with a specific goal? Sages have long asserted that the mind is the architect of reality, and focused, directed thought is the primary tool of creation. The pre-sleep state, known to modern researchers as hypnagogic, represents a golden window for influence. Conscious thought begins to dissolve, and the subconscious, freed from filters, eagerly absorbs information. It is at this moment that mantras, affirmations, visualizations, and quiet intentions penetrate deeply and unimpeded, becoming law. The pursuit of conscious dreaming requires only a clear statement of intention. The desire to receive guidance from the deep self is realized through a direct and simple question. Reprogramming limiting beliefs is achieved by planting opposing affirmations, reinforced by strong emotions. This does not require complex ceremonies or rituals, although they can be beneficial. The key is presence. The mind is always listening intently, and the only question is, who is speaking? The system would prefer this truth to remain hidden. The dream experience is not passive and random. It responds to the vibrations brought into it. A frightened mind plunges into the dark layers of the astral, encountering symbols of anxiety and struggle. A clear, calm, and open heart will soar higher, accessing spaces that grant insight, healing, and peace. The direction in which consciousness moves during sleep is determined not only by curiosity, but also by alignment. This is why children often have vivid and fantastical dreams. They have not yet been taught to doubt and suppress their inner feelings. However, with age, this openness gradually fades. We are taught that dreams don't matter, that they shouldn't be discussed. And we lose access to this source of wisdom not because it disappeared, but because we stopped knocking on its door. Return is possible, but it requires persistent knocking with intention. If questions arise about why some people manifest their desires faster, why their intuition is sharper, or how they manage to just know things, the answer often lies in what they do before sleep. It is in this moment that they align their inner field, choosing what to feed the subconscious and giving the soul direction before its nightly flight. This is not magic, but practice. But to the uninitiated, it looks like magic. This is technology hidden in plain sight. Not devices or machines, but the mind. Not the internet, but the inner world. And like any system, it will be programmed by something else if you don't take control. By media, fears, unresolved emotions, or the echo of yesterday's stress. These are the default encoders. You must interrupt this pattern. You can start with one sentence, one image, one feeling. That's enough to begin. The subconscious doesn't need volume. It needs clarity. By starting to treat sleep as a conscious descent into deeper layers of reality, rather than just rest, as a ritual, you can reclaim the power lost through neglect. By ceasing to be a passenger in the dream world, you can become its navigator. So tonight, before you fall asleep, pause. Close your eyes. Not in submission, but in command. Whisper your intention not to the room, but to the realm, and then let it go. Our conventional understanding of time is far from the truth. During waking hours, humanity is bound by the strictures of clocks and calendars, living in a world of linearity, logic, and predictability. However, the realm of sleep shatters this established illusion, freeing us from the tyranny of time and unveiling ancient wisdom that whispers, time is not merely a straight line, but rather a vast field of possibilities. How else can we explain the phenomenon of dreams, in which we experience moments before their real-life manifestation? Whether it's an insignificant conversation, a familiar place, or a mysterious symbol, we tend to dismiss these visions, attributing them to déjà vu. Yet, deep within, a vague sense of recognition arises, a strange feeling that we have already lived this moment, seen this face, stood in this exact place. This is not just a trick of the mind, but a glimpse of consciousness slipping through the cracks of time while the body is deep in slumber. Ancient sages describe time not as a linear progression, but as a spiral, a dimension that bends, loops, and overlays itself. In the state of sleep, when the body is relaxed and the mind is calm, consciousness is freed from the shackles of the present moment, gaining the ability to slide beyond its confines, touching memories yet to be created and observing probabilities yet to unfold. This is not fantasy, but a phenomenon that has been documented, studied, and even feared. The future is not hidden from us. It is merely obscured by the noise and bustle of waking life. There are countless accounts of people dreaming of disasters days before they occurred, of strangers appearing in dreams only to play a key role in waking life, and of enigmatic images that only make sense years later. These are not mere coincidences, but evidence that sleep is a place where the veil between worlds thins, where the rules of linear logic lose their power, and consciousness moves freely through time. Science is gradually beginning to confirm this ancient knowledge. Quantum physicists assert that time is relative, not fixed. Some hypothesize that past, present, and future exist simultaneously, layered upon each other like pages in a book. We don't have to write history in order. We just need to learn to turn the pages. And during sleep, we do this again and again, often without realizing it. However, the quality of our perception in dreams directly depends on the state of our consciousness. Like a foggy lens distorting an image, a restless or chaotic mind distorts the messages received. This is why clarity before sleep is so crucial, and why setting intentions is not just idle chatter, but precise navigation. If we fall asleep gripped by fear, our perception is distorted towards confusion. But if we fall asleep with an open heart, the symbols become clearer and the patterns more obvious. We don't always receive crystal-clear visions of the future. Often, messages come in the form of metaphors, symbols, and surreal narratives. But if we are attentive, if we record, reflect, and decipher our dreams, we will begin to see a map, understanding that sleep is not a passive state, but an active exploration. As for those who see too much in their dreams, who wake up shaken, as if they have been somewhere too real, too detailed to dismiss, these are not just random brain impulses, but time travelers who have touched potential timelines and brought back fragments of them. The tragedy is that most people dismiss these experiences, unaware of their value, trading a glimpse of infinity for the illusion of coincidence. Surely you have had such moments, glimpsing something and feeling the weight of truth before it appeared in your life. The system taught you to doubt these feelings, to explain them rationally. But what if these glimpses were a kind of guidance, an invitation to prepare, to change, to awaken? The subconscious is not just a repository of the past, but a receiver of infinity. And during sleep, when distractions subside, it becomes a channel of communication with this infinite source. The key is to learn to listen to this channel, and more importantly, to respond appropriately to the messages received. For knowing the future, however vague, is useless without action. The purpose of foresight is not fear, but preparation, not controlling destiny, but co-creating it. The direction in which human consciousness travels during sleep is determined not only by biological processes or chance, but by vibrational frequency. Every thought, every feeling emits a specific frequency, and during sleep, one does not shed these vibrations, but rather journeys through them. The astral world, the dream world, hidden dimensions. These are not arbitrary destinations, but places attuned to one's inner signal. Like a radio receiver tuning into a specific wave, the human soul moves towards what it resonates with. This is why two people who fall asleep in the same room at the same time can find themselves in completely different worlds. One wakes after visiting serene places filled with clarity and messages, while the other awakens in a cold sweat, haunted by nightmares and distortions. The difference lies not in the dream itself, but in the state in which one entered it. Fear, guilt, unresolved trauma, all of these are heavy burdens, a kind of magnetic weight. When one falls asleep with these negative emotions in their energy field, their consciousness is drawn downwards, not upwards, plunging into the lower astral layers where confusion, fear, and even parasitic entities reside. These nightmares seem so real that they cannot be ignored, and the dreams leave one exhausted, not rested. However, this is not punishment, but rather a reflection of one's internal state, a mirror of the frequencies one emits. But the reverse is also true. Love, gratitude, and peacefulness raise one's vibrational frequency. When one carries these positive emotions into sleep, the dimensions they access become clearer, lighter, and more instructive. They meet guides, receive symbols of healing, or gain deep understanding of problems arising in waking life. This is not spiritual fantasy, but rather a vibrational law. As ancient wisdom states, as above, so below. This is not merely a metaphor for cosmic symmetry, but a literal reflection of one's inner world, mirrored. In the worlds one enters, the emotions one experiences during the day shape the landscapes one visits at night. One does not simply plunge into the chaos of the subconscious, but navigates a map drawn by one's own vibrational frequency. How does one raise this frequency? One should start with what they fill their mind with before sleep. Do they scroll through stressful news, consume chaotic content, or dwell on past grievances? Or do they clear their energy, express gratitude, and set intentions? What one feeds their mind before sleep is like setting coordinates for the journey ahead. Intention plays a key role here. A simple affirmation like, "Today I ask for clarity," or "May I only encounter what serves my growth," can change the entire course of astral movement. It's not the words themselves, but the frequency behind them that sets the tone. Intention, aligned with awareness, becomes a kind of spiritual GPS navigator. The surrounding environment also matters. The energy of the room, the symbolism present in the space, and even body position can influence where one goes and what one encounters during sleep. Sound, scent, and light all act as subtle signals to the subconscious, either harmonizing or disorienting it. Sleep is not separate from its environment. It is shaped by it. This is why many initiates in mystical schools treated sleep as sacred preparation, not as something one simply falls into. Sleep was a ritual, a gateway, a journey. They fasted, purified themselves, and meditated, understanding that the journey was not random, but guided by intention, frequency, and purity of thought. And one doesn't need to be an ancient priest to do the same. It is enough to simply be aware of what one carries within when closing their eyes. Does one fall asleep in a state of reaction or in a state of awareness? This single choice determines whether the night will be merely unconscious recovery or conscious evolution. The truth is that one's vibration is not just a byproduct of mood, but a passport, and sleep is a means of transportation. Not every descent into the realm of Morpheus brings tranquility. Sometimes, behind closed eyelids, true chaos awaits. Endless chases through labyrinthine corridors, sinister silhouettes frozen in silent observation, and landscapes permeated with anxiety, horror, and confusion. Nightmares are not just annoying glitches in consciousness, but important signals, a kind of teacher. However, most of us prefer to avoid them, because we were never taught to face our fears. We were taught to suppress them, ignore them, and attribute them to a bad dream. But in the depths of consciousness, nothing is accidental, least of all fear. Nightmares are misinterpreted messengers. The images that arise in them can inspire terror, but their true purpose is diagnosis, not destruction. Nightmares can expose deeply buried wounds, suppressed emotions, and unresolved inner conflicts that we stubbornly refuse to acknowledge. They strip away the tinsel of everyday life and confront us face to face with pure symbols. An aggressive animal, a crumbling building, a silent figure pursuing us. All are reflections of inner energies yearning for our attention. Ancient sages viewed these visions not as punishment, but as karmic echoes, symbols arising in our astral body, generated by subconscious conflicts. The lower layers of the astral world are overflowing with fragments of human emotions: pain, envy, anger, fear. When we fall asleep without resolving inner contradictions, our energy attunes to the frequency of these dark spaces. We don't create nightmares out of nothing. We resonate with them, attracting experiences that reflect inner decay. The deepest mistake is to consider a nightmare as something external. The darkness that arises in dreams does not come from a monster hiding under the bed, but from those parts of ourselves from which we diligently run. And until we dare to face them, they will haunt us in our dreams. For in sleep, it is impossible to escape oneself. It only brings us closer to what has been rejected. But therein lies the chance for healing. Encountering a nightmare transforms it. There are many accounts from lucid dreamers who, upon ceasing to flee from their pursuer, discovered that it had changed. The attacker transformed into a guide, and the shadow into light. This shift is not merely a metaphor, but a real neurochemical and energetic change. When awareness interrupts the cycle of fear, our frequency rises, and the surrounding space instantly responds to this. This is the true power of conscious confrontation, not control, but healing. In ancient Egyptian temples, initiates were taught to enter altered states of consciousness, where they intentionally confronted their deepest fears. These dream incubations were not entertainment, but purification rituals designed to test the adept's ability to maintain awareness in the presence of shadow. For if one can face darkness in a dream, they can confront it in real life. Perhaps we do not enter a sacred temple, but our bed is no less significant a portal. and our fears are no less worthy of being confronted. The moment we stop considering our nightmares meaningless or horrifying and begin to ask what they are trying to show us, we open the door to transformation. The figure pursuing us may be a part of ourselves, calling for integration. The feeling of falling may symbolize a surrender we have avoided. A recurring theme may indicate an unhealed trauma. These are not enemies, but invitations. One should not think that self-work ends with mere awareness. Often these dream shadows return in layers like peeling an onion. Each encounter reveals a new truth, a new fear, another part of ourselves yearning to return home. This is the journey of dream alchemy, transforming the lead of our fears into the gold of our personal growth. Many spiritual teachings assert that the path to enlightenment is bright and serene, but those who have walked it honestly will tell you it is also thorny, dark, and difficult. Nightmares are not a deviation from the spiritual path, but an integral part of it. They demand courage, awareness, and a willingness to ask oneself, why am I seeing this right now? For timing is never accidental. The image that arises in your dream appears when you are ready, perhaps not to enjoy it, but to learn from it and grow. The system has taught us to view sleep as a disconnection and dreams as insignificant. But our darkest dreams are encrypted messages from those parts of ourselves that we have forgotten or rejected. Facing them is the first step to remembering who we truly are. Not only light, not only shadow, but the awareness that contains both. And this awareness, brought into our dreams, changes everything. For when we stop running and start listening, even our nightmares become sacred. The system counts on humanity missing its own evolution, closing its eyes to what is happening, and sinking into oblivion. It assumes people will thoughtlessly fall asleep, not questioning the meaning of what is happening, and wake up no wiser. A society that doesn't understand the nature of sleep is much easier to manipulate, for a mind without direction will not seek its path. However, when memory awakens and control over nightly visions returns, a person becomes dangerous, not cruel or reckless, but simply aware. This is precisely what the system fears. The dream world is not just fantasy, it is a real training ground. Every night, people enter a space where the laws of physics lose their power, time distorts, and the boundaries of the self expand. This space can be filled with chaos or clarity, depending on the approach. With intention, sleep becomes a lesson. With awareness, a temple. And with practice, a launching pad for exploring the depths of one's being and the universe beyond. Ancient sages taught that during sleep, the soul leaves the physical body and embarks on a journey, sometimes guided, sometimes not. This journey is not metaphorical. It is energetic and vibrational, a fact increasingly supported by modern science. Research into quantum consciousness and non-local awareness only confirms what mystics have always known. The mind is not confined to the skull, and sleep is not the end of awareness, but merely the beginning of a new level of it. To return to this understanding, the modern mind must shed the cultural stereotypes that make it fear the unknown, explain it away, and strip it of mystery, turning sleep into a meaningless jumble of images. But if dreams were so meaningless, why do people remember the most important ones? Why do they wake after certain nights with a message echoing, a feeling that lingers, and changes that begin? Sleep is not a waste of time. It is a sacred act. When one begins to treat it as a time for setting intentions, reviewing lessons, seeking guidance, and consciously directing energy. Everything changes. One doesn't just go to bed. One prepares for exploration, preparing their mind to receive information, reconnect, and remember. This doesn't require expensive technology or secret rituals, only presence and a decision to treat nights with the same awareness as days. It is important to understand that much of spiritual growth occurs not during meditation or yoga, but at night, when the mind is calm, the ego is suspended, and the soul is free. That is when renewals happen and true learning begins, when one remembers that consciousness is not something one has, but something one is, something infinite, never sleeping. And this is just the beginning. To access these truths, one doesn't need to be a monk or a mystic. One only needs to start paying attention to the world behind closed eyelids, to honor sleep as a multidimensional journey, and to view dreams not as distractions, but as data from the soul. Every night, there is a chance to grow, explore, and connect with something greater, but this requires a conscious choice. The next step can be to set an intention before sleep, to ask a question, and to invite the higher self, guides, or the subconscious to show what needs to be seen. It's important to keep a journal by the bed and record everything one can remember. Over time, patterns will become clearer, messages more understandable, and the wall between waking and sleep will thin until one feels whole and always awake. When more people begin to walk the world remembering their dreams, the system will lose its power. A dream-aware populace cannot be unconsciously controlled. A society that treats sleep as sacred creates a culture of inner strength. And when people awaken within their dreams, they inevitably awaken in their lives.